Good day guys, and welcome to another London session market update video. I hope you're all doing well and I hope you all had a great weekend. Looking forward to another big week on the charts. I'll probably be on the charts a little bit more this week. As of next week I will be away, so probably won't be uploading these daily market update videos, but I'll see what I can do whilst I am away. But as always guys, I'll be analysing GJ, Gold, GU, NAS, and we'll see if we've got time for maybe USO or something like that. So without further ado, let's get cracking. Let's look at GJ to begin. So starting with the weekly time frame, and that to me is a very strong bullish candle. That suggests that we're likely, just based off counter probabilities, that we could pull back to create a support on the minor time frames before we head back up in line with that previous weekly candle. Within the current daily candle, just going to mark in the low of that current candle, see what we've got at that level. We obviously form a support in the minor time frames. Is there any clean trap below? We'll have to wait and see. There could be potential zones to look to sell from at a high at that weekly resistance right now. So if we begin to reject and pull back, see what we've got below the current daily candles low. Looking at on the daily time frame itself, it's still technically bearish and will remain bearish until we actually close above the last year's high. Currently we are rejecting. What we did form on last Friday's candle, the closure was an indecision doji candle which closed right up near the high. Obviously the start of a new week, very little volume just now, may currently create a higher low, yet to break the low of the previous candle. Believe if we begin to break the low of the previous candle resistance, there's a good chance we'll head back down further. So therefore I will mark in that candle's low above the high. Also, there's obviously going to be opportunities upon continuation. We have not been these levels yet again since 2015, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, correct. So into price discovery above the highs. Looking at on the 4 hour time frame, the structure itself is technically bullish. We've bounced off the support on the most recent pullback. We are trying to create another support after a bearish candle formed at the start of the this week, the open of the weekly candle, the Monday's candle, today's candle. However, we are about to close bullish in the current 4 hour candle. This suggests to me, and it is a strong bullish candle, almost engulfing the previous, that if we begin to break the high of the resistance form within the current daily candle, there could be good options to look for buys above. So therefore I'm going to mark in that level just there, the previous 4 hour candle's high. The zone I'll mark it in on the M30. I know it's going to be a 4 hour zone, but I will just mark it in the M30, mark in support. It's going to be a big support. I'll see what I can do on the M30. Alright, so there's the range, the 4 hour range. Alright, this is perfect. Now onto the M30 time frame. So it is a 4 hour zone and we are beginning to break above it. Alrighty guys, that is the current daily candles low. That is the previous daily candles low. So I'm going to remove the horizontal, the current daily candles low. What I can see is the M30 is technically bearish. So it's at a very significant level in my opinion just now. It's at a 4 hour resistance. It's at the current daily candles high. There are a few options potentially coming up. If we begin to close and pop above that level, 188.40 roughly, we will be into some clean traffic to the left hand side, albeit against the actual M30 structure, but in line with more the bias is neutral, but in line with that previous weekly candle. Could we have potentially created a low for the week? Who knows? Maybe the way the previous weekly candle closed, if we begin to break above it, there's a high probability we will continue to the upside. So there's a few options just here. If we begin to pop above, I'd be looking for potential buys. I wouldn't be just looking for the impulse entry, and I'd want to see the tap back in to this zone. Reason being, if it's going to tap back in, it's going to do one or two things. It's going to respect it to form a support above it to head back up towards that 188.80, or it's going to do the opposite. It's going to pop above, reject, retest it, but only to pull back, close below, and it's likely going to come back down towards 187.80 at the opposite end. So if that is to be the case, potential sells, if we remain below, we respect this resistance, I would also potentially look to sell it from that point there. Now, further sell options, if we do pop above and it just continues without really giving us the confirmation of the tap into that 188.40 before it moves up to 188.80, begins to reject this zone, it's technically still bearish in the M30. All I'm doing is looking for my triggers within price action, my signals within price action to take a sell back down towards the current daily candles low, if it does obviously have the volume to get that far down. Now further options on GJ, again, if it just begins to reject, you're not in a sell, the bias is still neutral, so you could technically trade in either direction. 4-hour support, a very strong support we can see around that 187.70 sort of level. So if price does pop back down to that level there, once again, it's definitely a buy zone for me. So that's where I'd be looking to also potentially buy it if it does pull back a little bit further. So that is GJ. Now, let's move on to have a look at gold. Let's do the analysis. Looking at the weekly, I'd call it a weak bearish candle. It's obviously close of a long wick to the downside, suggesting buys were quite present within that candle itself as well. Current candle has, I'm just going to mark in the high of it, current daily candle, see what we've got above that level. We have yet to break a lot of the previous, very little volume as to be expected, but we are weak bearish based off that candle. Still above this resistance on the left hand side, respecting that level, interesting to see. Looking at the daily, structure itself is bullish, but what we're about to potentially do is break the low of that previous bullish candle, which did leave a long wick to the upside, closing a weak bullish candle. Again, potentially grabbing some more liquidity from previous zones over here to the left, only to close back below it, back at this support. So if we do begin to break below it, lower high, lower low, we've got the candle probabilities on our side to the downside. Clean candle to the left, could potentially come down towards the 2006, 2007 sort of region. We'll see what we've got on the 4-hour and M30, but the structure itself is bullish, but with counter probabilities potentially soon to the downside. The 4-hour structure itself is as a flip bullish. I think it depends on the provider, and this provider actually has, yeah, it's flip bullish, broken and closed above this high at 2033.18 roughly. So therefore, we are technically bullish as long as we remain above these lows. However, we are now approaching support, strong bearish candle closure upon us on the 4-hour. Just gonna mark in the high. I'll adjust it accordingly to M30. Just gonna do that to the downside. So we're now approaching a support, so potential buy zone. The structure itself is bullish as well. So we've got bullish on the daily with counter probabilities and downside, bearish on the weekly. 4-hour is bullish. M30 is, by the looks of it, technically bearish. That is the low. Yep, so it's bearish. So once again, buys is neutral on gold as well. So it gives us options. All right. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to adjust that down. All right. Lovely. This is what I'm going to be looking at. That is the previous daily candle's low, guys. If price begins to pop below it, pretty clean traffic to the left. Got a little bit of my support, but we're likely going to be entering below that point there. So if it begins to pop below it, want to see pull back yet again. Tap back in, and then look for a continuation to the downside. Bear in mind, though, where it's come from. It's come from, at the moment, the highs, the current daily candle's highs. So what we prefer to see is a little bit of a pullback, exhaustion. Maybe tapping into that previous support only to reject, come back down, create a lower high, lower low, and then begin to pop down to that range below 2020. And that, for me, will be a more probable setup if it does give us that option. So be wary of that, where it's come from. Whoops. It's coming obviously from the high. So we'll continue. Well, look, if it pops into that zone below 2020 around London Open without really much of a pullback, a little bit maybe consolidation prior to it, I'd still entertain that sell option because we've got counter probabilities on our side. As long as we tap into that previous daily candle's low and reject it, the zone at that low, then I would look to sell it from below that point there. So I'm just going to mark in sells below. Sells. Now, if we respect it, guys, obviously I'm going to be interested in buying it. The bias is neutral. If we respect the previous daily candle's low, it's a 4-hour support. And I'm just, once again, looking for my triggers within price action. Looking for a little bit of consolidation. I'm likely going to want to see a little bit more than just a bullish candle closure, a strong bullish candle closure. Probably want to see a bit of consolidation. Seeing we've been really on we've created a pretty solid leak to the downside. Once I get that little bit of structure forming at the support, and I get my catalyst within price action, we start to pop above the consolidation and close above it. That could be potential catalyst to look for a buy above. So I'm just going to mark in buys above at this point here. Now, obviously, further sell options, and we're still going to be bearish in structure, guys. When we come back up towards the current daily candles high, respect that point there. So even we pop above this resistance, tap in towards the high, only to reject, close back below the resistance. And I feel it could be good sell options below 2031. So that matter, I'm just going to put in sells. And that is going to be what I'll be looking at on gold moving into the London session. We'll update it maybe pre-MI But that's what I'm looking at for now. On to GU, guys. Now, let me quickly delete all the drawings and let's do the analysis. So, weekly, week bearish, obviously, again, as it's been in really choppy area price action, higher time frames. On wicks to the downside, a lot of buyers present within the candle, pushing price back up as well towards the end of the week, obviously. Daily structure is technically bullish. Again, once again, we've bounced off the support to the left. We've now, that candle, the way it closed, long wick to the downside, closing up near its high, suggests to me of grabbed liquidity from the downside. Current candle, it's done what it normally would do in this sort of situation. Create a bit of a lower wick, begin to break above the high. Let's mark in that high and just see what we've got at that level. It could be the potential of a price does form a support above to head back up, and we could eventually head up towards that 1.27650 sort of level. So the structure is bullish, counter probabilities to the upside. For our structure, it's technically bullish as well by the looks of it. Yep. A little swing point here. All right, I'm going to mark in the resistance. Got a little bit more room to the left, not a great deal. We'll see either way what we've got above it. So marking that most recent resistance, and marking the support below it. And we can move on to the M30. So we're bullish on all the time frames so far. Now the M30, so that is also looking bullish. Therefore, the bias is to look for potential buys today. So that is that resistance now. It is the 4-hour resistance, was it not? It was, so I'm going to leave that at that point there. All right, so we're just consolidating just now. So if we get engulfing candle, I mean, it could be options, but not going to probably be in a chart, you guys, just yet. But if we start to pop above this consolidation, then I think there is a high probability we'll pop back up towards that 127.30. Whether you got the margin to look for a trade or not remains to be seen. Other options on GU today for me, let it create that move, let it pull back, form a support above to potentially buy it. That's what I'd be looking at. So buys above this 1.27150 sort of level is definitely an area I'd like to get involved. Now, if it pulls back, I'd probably still want to play it on the side of structure. So therefore, I would say as long as we really remain above this point here, we're technically going to remain bullish on the M30. So if we pop down towards 120, I would want to respect 127 flat, psychological round number. I'd really want to respect that level, so I'm probably just going to adjust this a little bit. So incorporates 127. Let me coordinates. Yeah, it's a mistake. That was a mistake. 127. That's all right. There we go. That will do, guys. So as long as we remain above it, I'd want to buy it. Any pullback, form support, just look for your calcium price action. And if we begin to drop below it, create a clean move down. Don't rush into it because it is very choppy to the left. Let it create an impulse. Don't have to always be in the first move to the downside or upside for that matter. And reject, and then look for your sell options below. So buys above 127 flat for me on GU, and then potential sellers below, back below that level. Once again, doesn't mean we just sell it. We need to wait for the right confirmation to do so. Okay, now on to NAS. Let's look at the beast days NAS, and this is just in an absolute tear right now. It's just flying, absolutely flying. A bit disappointing for me because I'm trying to gather some value stocks, but the value is not quite as good as what it was last week, with obviously everything going to the moon on NAS recently. But nonetheless, let's look at weekly. Strong bullish. It's opened up with a gap on this particular provider. Not so on this one though. What I've done on this particular on O-under is marking the low of that candle. And we do have a high, low, high, high. I know we don't have any wick to the downside, but still we should continue to the upside without needing to break our own low. That could potentially provide some sell options below that level. But we still, doesn't mean we won't continue bullish throughout the week. We could just pull back to grab that liquidity before we head back up onto the daily. Now we can go back to the other chart. All right, so daily, obviously we're in a on and tear. Let's mark in a 50% at previous daily count. Let's just see if it lines up with any sort of support or resistance. So potentially a level price could pull back to form a support above before it heads back up to retest the high. The 4 hour doesn't really line up with anything just there. It's also obviously bullish. I'm just going to mark in solid level as support. As for resistance, we don't quite have it just yet. Don't have anything we can mark in, to be honest, guys. M30 structure remains bullish. This gap, I don't think it flips bearish, to be honest. I wouldn't consider it flipping bearish until we actually start closing below 1736 roughly is that point there. What I would do is marking the current daily candles high, and what I simply would be doing today is I would want NAS to just continue to the upside. Well, look for potential buys, sorry, at the moment. So any pullbacks, look, potentially, I mean, you got the market open gap. It could come back down to fill the market open gap, grab that liquidity, form a support, and then I'd look to buy it back up towards the highs. Further buy options, definitely above the high upon continuation. I know it's people probably saying it's oversold, should pull back, but until it actually proves that it will pull back, so until it confirms that it's pulled back, and that for me would be at least a really strong solid 4-hour candle closure followed by another candle creating lower high, lower low, that would suggest to me maybe we're making a deeper pullback. Until we have that type of confirmation, we can still continue to the upside, guys. It has been on an absolute tear the past week, so definitely look for continuation buys above the highs. Again, if you're not comfortable with that, then just don't do it. Just wait for it to pull back. Potential levels where it could pull back to, got the market open. That's definitely a level you could look for price pull back to. Could just grab that liquidity, form a support, and then look to buy it. Now, any pullback really, I just be looking for my triggers. The deeper it pulls back, the more I'd want to see. So if it pulls back more towards the 50% that previous daily, I think that's the 50% daily. That's the market open just here. If it does pull back a little bit further, I want to see a little bit more. I'd want to see a structure form. So that's 50% of daily in this point just here, sorry, and that is the market open. Now if we pull back towards that gap, the market's open. Now look for my triggers, my signal candles with price action, potentially bite back up. So as for the sells, guys, like I said, I want a strong 4-hour candle closure. I want come NY. We've got a bit of this forming. We've broken through this consolidation. We've created a low, lower high, lower low, breaking the 4-hour candles low, for instance, as well as added confluence. That point there, that is probably the only level I would look to potentially sell it below. All right, just quickly onto the oil, guys. All right, just quickly over it. Structure. Weekly is a weak bullish candle on weak and iron direction. Similar to GU, it's at a strong support, but very choppy price action on a high time frame. Hard to know what to make of that. Daily, not looking great. Structure itself is bullish, but again, just in an area consolidation. But what we do have is low high, low low on that daily, in the daily candle probabilities. Now, the 4-hour structure, bit of a tricky one. It is technically bullish, rejecting that resistance at a previous level of resistance with greater support, albeit a very weak support just now. Very hard to know what to make of that. It's now down to the M30. What we can see is that is technically bearish. So for me, I just be playing this range bound at the moment. We're approaching a 4-hour support. Right now, it's kind of in the middle, just consolidating. I wouldn't be all that interested in lack of volume just now. I wouldn't really be trading this pair until MY. So I'd want it to come back down towards that 72.60, form a support above it, and then potentially buy it back up. Aside from that, where could it potentially reject? I mean, we'll form resistance within the current daily candle at this point here. So potentially that could be a sell zone as well, below 73.733 if we do pull back up, only to reject it. But I would still also definitely look for a potential sell below 73.60 if we do pull back to that level just there as well, guys. And that's a wrap. A little bit longer one today. Do trade safe, my friends. Don't do anything stupid first day of the week. And I will catch you a little bit later on. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, and see you later. Cheers, guys. Bye for now.